Hey guys, stitchproxy here. This is a little weirder than I usually do in my videos. Sorry if I've not done videos in the last few days as well. This is something I've been wanting to, I found out about, and I've heard this guy's voice from another thing I do, and another thing I've heard it from a video. He does Gotham. He's Gotham Rogue, and that's what his other channel is called. And I've heard his voice, and it's really awesome. I love his like dark toned everything voice, and it's kind of good story wise. He tells really good of the opinions and all that. And I found out recently he does a horror channel. And you guys do know I'm a big creepypasta, big horror general, and I'm doing the ranked Friday the 13th films from worst to best. And I will give you guys my opinion on them as well, but I'm just loving hearing his voice. He's really good, and I could actually see him doing like his own takes on, if he does like his own takes on horror movies, or like does his own like creepypasta stories and tells them out. He could be one of the best like horror movie storytellers. He's that good. His voice is perfect, and it's like can go to different tones. I really like it too. I like that. He's really good, and I'll leave a link down below to the video and his channel where you guys can check it out. But let's get to the video. He's pretty cool. Let's get this started.
Welcome to Rogue's Nightmare Gallery.
He's got that creepy like flow to his voice I really love. That's
Jason Voorhees, everyone's favorite mute slasher villain who mindlessly stalk and brutally murder random people, preferably fornicating teenagers. The Friday the 13th film series is a pretty damn repetitive and frankly kinda stupid part of horror movie history, but I'm saying that as a fan. Despite not being cinema masterpieces, they're still really entertaining, and I guess I'm always like the character of Jason. He's got a great visual design, what with that iconic hockey mask hiding a hideously disfigured face, and the concept of him continuously returning from the grave, a little more beaten and decayed each time, is really cool. He does sort of have a motivation too, as it was teenage camp counselors who were too busy fornicating to notice a young Jason drowning in Crystal Lake. He then returned from the grave the first time, or did he survive the drowning? I don't know. To exact revenge on all fornicating teenagers. Anyway, join me here in the Nightmare Gallery as I rank all the 12 of the Friday the 13th films from worst to best. Seriously, why haven't they made another one yet, so that it's 13? Of course, these are just my opinions, so feel free to write your own rankings in the comments. Number 12. Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. Released in 1993, this one is the 9th film in the series, and I guess you could say the last of the original classic run, although it did come out a bit later than the others, with a 4-year gap from Part 8. It's also vastly different from the previous movies, to say the least. In Final Friday, the second entry in the series to claim to be the last, Jason Voorhees, the actual Jason Voorhees, is revealed to be a worm-like creature, and the body of Jason is apparently merely a shell. In the movie, the body is destroyed, and the worm, or whatever the hell it is, needs to find a new one, so it keeps entering different people, jumping from person to person, until it can find a proper, sustainable host, which must be a Voorhees by blood. Yeah, I know. What the fuck? Now, I appreciate the movie makers trying to do something different with the series, but this is just too much. It strays so far from the previous entries that it's not even like a Jason movie. A slimy little creature that jumps from host to host? What the fuck did they inhale to come up with this shit? Also, Jason has a sister all of a sudden? This series had its share of turds, but this one is the biggest and smelliest of them all. Number 11. Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. So we go back in time to 1985 and Part 5 of the series. In Part 4, Jason was actually killed off by a boy named Tommy Jarvis, yet they decided to continue the series anyway, because them dollar bills. So how did they do that? By resurrecting Jason? No, not this time. Instead, and this is a spoiler I guess, a copycat killer picks up where Jason left off. The movie takes place 5 years after Part 4 and follows a teenage Tommy Jarvis who's gone crazy bonkers after his horrifying experiences with Jason. After years in a loony bin, he's sent to a more casual treatment home out in the woods, where the patients are free to move about as they please. Once there, the killings start again, of course, and it's at the hands of someone dressed as Jason. But it isn't him, as I said, just a copycat killer. So Jason isn't even in the movie. The motivations for this guy to mimic Jason are also incredibly stupid and make no fucking sense. Even for a cheap 80s slasher, it's extremely weak writing. Plus, almost every single character in this movie is really goofy and over the top. In my opinion, this one is another giant turd. Number 10, Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. By 1989, and after 7 movies, the studio decided it was time to do something different with Jason Voorhees, namely to take him out of the woods and put him in the middle of a large urban city. A great idea, but sadly there were problems. So in the movie, Jason hitches a ride to New York City on a cruise ship filled with, what else? Fornicating teenagers. So what are the problems? Well, it takes over a fucking hour to get to New York. Most of the movie is spent on a fucking boat. So in a movie called Jason Takes Manhattan, we only get around a half an hour of Manhattan. It should have been called Jason Takes the fucking boat. There are reasons for this, of course. It is really expensive to film in Manhattan, and the movie makers had a pretty limited budget, so they could only afford to shoot there for 3 days. They had to pad out the rest of the film with scenes on the fucking boat. Now, Jason stalking his prey on a boat, isolated in the middle of the ocean, is actually not a bad idea, but it should have been a separate movie. This one is such a sad chapter of the Jason saga, because it could have been so good. I absolutely love the little that we do get in Manhattan, like Jason killing criminals, and an entire movie like that probably would have been my favorite of the bunch.
Yeah, Jason killing criminals.
9,
That's the funniest
Friday
thing I ever heard.
13th, Part 3, 3D. In this one from 1982, Jason stalks a bunch of fornicating teenagers in the woods. His forte, in other words. This is probably going to irk a lot of people, as Part 3 seems to be a fan favorite, but I just don't see
really
why.
like it.
There's nothing about this movie that stands out to me, and this early in the series, Jason was kinda portrayed as a clumsy goofball. He gets his ass kicked around by his own victims, and just don't seem scary at all. A lot of the movie also takes place in broad daylight, which further takes away from the scariness. Then there's this annoying fat curly-haired guy, who I get the feeling is supposed to be the comic relief, but seriously, he ain't. He's whiny, has zero self-esteem, and jumps around scaring people. Now, I know this series isn't exactly known for having good characters in it, but this guy takes the cake. He's a completely unsympathetic, unfunny, and pathetic loser. Seeing him die is the best part of the movie. Part 3 is historically important though, as it's the first one where Jason wears the iconic hockey mask. It's also the only Friday movie to be made in 3D, although that's not exactly a compliment.
No, it's not.
Number 8, Friday the 13th, Part 2. The second film in the series, obviously. This one came out in 1981. Part 2 is the only Jason movie that I specifically remember watching as a kid, so I do hold it a bit dear. But looking at it objectively, it ain't really that great. It's about, you guessed it, Jason stalking fornicating teens in the woods. This one is done better than Part 3 though, and it's the first on the list that I don't dislike. I just don't think it's that great. Where I think it falters is by, just like Part 3 did, portraying Jason as kind of a goofball. There are some really unintentionally funny scenes in this
killer,
movie, like one where Jason gets kicked in the balls
Jason's
by
one of
his
the killers.
victim,
If I
and one
see
where he
the woods, I'm
stands
turning
on
around
a
and
chair
I know I
and
can't get away
breaks
from
under
him.
his weight. He's just not scary at all here. This was also before the hockey mask, so Jason looks really stupid wearing just a bag over his head. There are a couple of very well made and intense scenes though, like the pre-opening credits scene and the final scene where we finally see Jason unmasked. Part 2 is also historically important, as it's the first to feature Jason as the killer. In Part 1, it was just his mother.
Yeah.
Number 7, Jason X. Yeah, this will probably also piss off a lot of people. I mean, putting Jason X ahead of Part 2 and 3? Are you fucking insane? That's entirely possible, but besides the point. Jason X, the 10th film in the series, was released much later than the rest, namely in 2001, and it was made to appease the fans while the long-awaited Freddy vs. Jason movie still languished in development hell. In this one, Jason is cryogenically frozen and awoken hundreds of years into the future on a spaceship. He then begins to stalk the crew, which includes scientists, space marines, androids, and of course fornicating teenagers. So yeah, it's Jason in space. A really stupid and ridiculous idea for sure, but still, it is one very entertaining movie. Yeah, it's goofy as hell, but it's supposed to be. Jason X is the only time the Friday the 13th series ventured into straight up comedy. That's what this movie is, a sci-fi slasher comedy, and that's how you gotta view it in order to enjoy it. Just the fact that even though Jason is in space, in the distant future, he's still hunting, fornicating, doped out.
I want to quickly say this. There's a scene, if this is a spoiler for anyone that has not seen this, there's a scene in Jason X where they try to distract Jason with a scene in the camp, basically, of two hot girls playing near the water, and it's like, oh, this might work. Nah. And like he sees something wrong with the glitch and he goes straight for it. Yeah, that's Jason for you. But I'm a big fan of Jason Voorhees, so I didn't agree with a lot he's saying, because a lot of them made Jason look goofy. Some of them made him look like not a really good killer that I remember him as and fear him for. So go with this, guys. Let's keep going here.
About teens. That's ridiculous, and the movie is very well aware of that. Number 6. Freddy vs. Jason.
Now that one
the
was
long-awaited crossover between Jason Voorhees and fellow 80s slasher monster Freddy Krueger of the Nightmare on Elm Street series. It came out in 2003, but plans for this movie started already in the late 80s. It was officially announced for the first time at the end of that dog turd known as Jason Goes to Hell, so in 1993 in other words. The project then ended up in development hell. It didn't get made until a decade later. I really like how they brought Jason and Freddy together, and that's a pretty tricky thing to do, coming up with a plot that allows these two to fight. In the movie, Freddy is forgotten by the teens of Elm Street, and has therefore lost most of his powers. In order to regain them, he resurrects Jason and sends him to Elm Street to spread a little terror. The teens' newfound fear will then refuel Freddy with powers. Of course, Jason isn't easy to control, leading to the two fighting. This movie isn't perfect. It focuses too much on the teens and takes too long getting to Jason and Freddy's battle, but still a pretty entertaining movie. I also like how Jason is kinda portrayed as the more sympathetic monster of the two, and it's awesome to get flashbacks to his tragic childhood, fleshing the character out a bit. Number 5. Friday the 13th, the remake. Released in 2009, this is the latest film in the series. Although I suppose you can't really lump it together with the rest of the movies, as this is a remake, and therefore not connected story-wise. Not that the others had the greatest continuity anyway. I wouldn't say that this is a remake of the original Friday movie though. It's more the first three put together, yet still its own thing. I usually hate remakes, especially modern ones, but this one ain't really that bad. In fact, I wouldn't even say it's bad at all. It's a pretty solid modern take on the Jason saga that still kinda feels like an 80s slasher. It is a lot darker and more gritty than the original films though, and Jason himself is more terrifying than he's ever been. That's one thing this movie has over all the others. It's definitely the scariest.
When I watched it,
I feel like in the original series, with the exception of part 4, Jason was either goofy, like in the earliest entries, or an awesome badass, like in the later ones. But here in the remake, he's a truly terrifying figure. So yeah, one of the better modern horror remakes. Number 4. Friday the 13th. The original that started it all. Released in 1980, the first Friday movie tells a tale of a group of fornicating teenagers staying at Camp Crystal Lake, the same place where a young Jason Voorhees supposedly drowned decades earlier. His dear-old mummy, Pamela Voorhees, took her revenge by murdering the camp counselors, who were supposed to be keeping an eye on little Jason, but were of course too busy fornicating, thus beginning the Voorhees' eternal grudge against doped-out fornicating teenagers. Years later, Pamela's at it again, killing the newly arrived counselors, who naturally have nothing to do with Jason's drowning. But the Voorheeses don't give no damn. Pamela is a pretty interesting horror villain, a psychopath who wants revenge for what happened to her son, and Betsy Palmer does an absolutely amazing job on the role. This movie also has a very claustrophobic feel to it, in the style of The Thing, with the teens being isolated in the middle of the woods during a rainstorm. Still, it is pretty generic and feels a bit like a poor man's version of earlier slashers like Black Christmas and Halloween. Not a great start for the series, but a pretty good one. Number 3. Friday the 13th, Part 4, The Final Chapter. Now we're getting to the really good stuff. Part 4, released in 1984, was actually meant to be the last entry in the series, and as I mentioned earlier, the movie ends with a young Tommy Jarvis killing Jason. I guess that's a spoiler, but how can you talk about this film series without referencing that? So the final chapter is really just another by-the-numbers Friday the 13th movie. Jason stalks and brutally murders a group of fornicating teenagers in a house in the woods. But it's the execution of it all that makes this one stand out. First off, I think that Part 4 is easily the scariest of the original classic movies. It's got a really dark and creepy atmosphere with much better cinematography than the earlier films. Jason is also portrayed as a very frightening and relentless killing machine who suddenly turns up out of nowhere when you don't really expect him to. This is when he became a true scary killer, but before he became a badass. Then there's the characters, who are more fun and feel more defined than in most of the other movies, especially Tommy Jarvis, and of course Crispin Glover's dead fuck and his wisecracking pal. Although it's not my personal number 1, I'd say that Part 4 is in fact the definitive Jason movie, and if you're only gonna watch one, pick this one.
Okay.
Number 2, Friday.
There we go. Okay, sorry guys for pausing a lot of the movie, but the reason why I love Friday the 13th is also I just love when Jason pops out of nowhere. To me, it's like, where the fuck did you just come from? Because, like, I love the references they do where he just pops out of nowhere. It's like, where the fuck did you just come from? Or, like, the dumbasses don't realize he's right there. He's right there. You fuck. You stupid. He's right there. Like, the behind you. Look, turn behind you. He's right there. He's gonna come and kill you. I love those kind of scenes because it's like proves that our humanity does not understand when we are in a tense situation and we know the killer is around here somewhere. We do not look behind us. Like, if I'm gonna open my door, I'm gonna keep looking behind me. If I see him coming towards me, I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna break the door down. If I cannot, I'm gonna run somewhere else. But I do love Jason Voorhees. Jason Voorhees is a pretty cool character, and let's let him finish this up. Sorry for talking so much too.
The 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. Part 7 came out in 1988 and was originally supposed to be the Freddy vs. Jason movie. These plans were scrapped due to disagreements between the two movie studios though, so a Jason vs. Carrie movie was proposed instead. However, this didn't work either, as the Carrie character was also owned by another studio. So the filmmakers decided to just create their own generic Carrie clone and pit her against Jason. And that's what this movie is about. Jason once again stalks doped out teenage prey in the woods, but this time one of them is Jean freaking Grey with telekinetic abilities. Usually when this series tries to do something new and fresh, it for some reason totally fails, like making Jason a slimy worm, sending him to Manhattan, or using a copycat killer. But this time it succeeded, at least in my opinion. Sure, this girl named Tina isn't Carrie or Jean Grey, but she's still an interesting character, and it's very entertaining to see Jason go up against a formidable enemy. For once, he wasn't the only supernatural part of the movie. I also absolutely love the way he looks in this one. It's by far my favorite Jason design. At this point in the series, he had certainly gone through the ringer to say the least. So here he's a disgusting, decomposing, rotting corpse with parts of his skeleton visible. Even his mask was in strung up shape, with a large chunk of it broken off, exposing part of Jason's teeth. The thumbnail and the picture at the beginning are taken from this movie.
Yeah, that was a good example.
And through the process of elimination, you of course now realize that the number 1 slot belongs to Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. So Jason was killed by Tommy Jarvis in Part 4, and Part 5 featured Tommy being stalked by a copycat. Well then what came after that? Part 6, released in 1986, is again about Tommy, and in the movie he goes to Jason's grave to make sure that the killer is indeed thoroughly dead, only to of course accidentally resurrect him. With Jason on the loose once again and more powerful than ever, Tommy tries desperately to warn the people surrounding Camp Crystal Lake, but no one listens to him, wanting nothing more than to just forget about Jason Voorhees. Part 6 has by far the best plot of the entire series, focusing on Jarvis fighting against the townspeople in order to save them. Being the only true recurring character besides Jason himself, and having a long history with the killer, Tommy is the most interesting protagonist these movies ever had.
I'd probably
like
say
him a lot more
this was one of my favorite ones just because I love how you accidentally revive the one killer you don't want to revive.
Going against an entire police force, refusing to listen to him, and being prepared to sacrifice himself in order to stop Jason. Mr. Voorhees himself is also a total badass here. In fact, this is the first appearance of the action hero take on a character, or whatever you could call it. It also marks the beginning of decomposed corpse Jason, which is how I always imagine him. This movie has a lot of humor to it as well, although it's far from a straight up spoof like Jason X was. In short, Jason Lives has the most awesome portrayal of Jason, the best protagonist, the best plot, some of the best kills, the best jokes. Basically, it's the best. So dear,
I want to quickly say this to all you guys, if you guys don't know why I love that one more too. What he said was very true, that it is the best plot as well. My favorite scene is where, my favorite thing is, how do you accidentally revive Jason? That's like, oh, I'm going to go check this guy's grave. I'm going to check his grave. Oh, somehow I accidentally revive you. It's funny as fuck, and I love Jason Voorhees for a lot of the reasons that he is my first slasher movie I watched as a kid, and I've been a fan ever since. So, I love this so much, and let's finish this up.
There you have it. Those are all of the Friday the 13th films ranked from worst to best. If you like this video, let me know in the comments, and I might do more of these ranking videos, like one for the Nightmare on Elm Street series, or maybe Halloween. Anyway, join me here in the Nightmare Gallery again sometime.
I'm gonna leave a link down below where you guys can check this out, but to Rogue out there, dude, I wish you would also, like, I would love to talk to you about some horror movies I've seen. Like, you should also do the Saw series, like your top 10 favorite Saw traps, top 10 maybe your least favorite Saw trap to your favorite Saw trap, or your favorite Saw series to your least favorite Saw series to your favorite Saw series, and give your reasons why to which Saw, why, and maybe the traps they used or something. Because I would love to hear your opinion on that, because I'm a big Saw fan and I want to hear your opinion on it. Because I love horror, and I would love to get to talk to you as well, because you sound so cool, and I wish you would do creepypasta stories as well, because you are a really cool dude. I'm kind of geeking out when I'm hearing your voice, because it sounds so kind of scary, but it also wants me to, your voice makes me do two things. It makes me want to pay attention more to your voice, because you have a very dark and tone that actually is very, I would say, kind of like, I'm gonna compare you to Junior. If you know Creepypasta Junior, I compare your voice to him, but a version of it where I pay attention to Junior very well as well. But I like your voice as well as his, because I pay attention to it and I want to focus on what you're saying. Because I love the ideas. Because you are really cool. I love how you tell the stories, and I love how you give your opinions in that voice, because it's really good. Alrighty guys, I'm going to leave a link down to his video to... Actually, I'm going to leave a link to this video to his horror gallery. I love that name too. And I'm going to leave a link down to his the Gotham Rogue, because I did mention that in the first part of the series, so you should go check that out. Please give this guy a like, a subscribe, I will go, and basically what I just said was my comment, but like, subscribe his video, go like him, subscribe him, and don't forget to go, I don't really care if you're subscribing to me, but go subscribe to this dude, because he's awesome. To all my proxies out there, I'll see you guys later, and I would love to Rogue, I would love to come back next time to the Horror Gallery, or Arkham Asylum.